Hey everybody, welcome back to the Full Circle Network. I'm editor-in-chief of FullCircleCinema.com, Jackson Hayes, and today we are here to review episode 6 of season 2 of Doom Patrol, otherwise entitled Space Patrol. Today I'll be joined by my lead news writer, Jacob Campbell.
You must have managing editor again, didn't you?
Nope.
You almost said it. Yeah, you did.
Nope.
All right, what's up, everybody? It's Jacob Campbell. I'm, like Jackson said, lead news writer. Well, Full
Yep,
Circle
got it right this time.
You did. I'm very proud of you, and I am happy to be here this week.
Okay, so we're here after that crazy episode last week. I've got to say, I wasn't able to be on the review, so I just wanted to say it's definitely one of my favorite episodes of the series, possibly. It just hit another notch at the end there and just left me feeling, a lot of things. Sad, wanting more, the list goes on and on. But I was just so excited for this next episode, and it was definitely different than what I anticipated after such a crazy episode, but I definitely love this episode. And there's a lot to get into, so Jacob, we'll jump into your initial thoughts.
Yeah, once again, a really great episode from Doom Patrol. As we've said on this podcast, Doom Patrol doesn't miss. Some exciting moments with everyone involved. Mostly everyone involved. Cliff and the Chief had some great moments with Dorothy. Everything going on in the underground with Jane was awesome, and I just loved every minute of it. And also some surprise, moments with Larry and a new character that I don't think any of us expected to show up this season that were great. All in all, it was just a really great episode for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no other way to put it. I mean, this show is firing on all cylinders, and this episode was no different. I guess let's start where the episode ended, so we can pick it back up. I mean, at the end of episode 5, we saw Candlemaker go inside of the underground and take out 2 of Jane's personalities, and it left us feeling like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going on with Jane, and we come back to her, and she's been covered in wax. She was left in the basement of Doom Manor alone, and they had to go find her. Dorothy's missing at the start of the episode, and it's kind of all over the place. And Larry just has come back after the events with his son and grandson, and Rita's off involved with the play, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but. So we're here at this crazy point, and then with all this going on in Doom Patrol fashion, a spaceship falls down from the sky, and and they're like, Niles, do you know these guys? And he's like, this is horrible timing, because of course he does.
Yeah,
he knows
obviously.
this spaceship just coming down from space in the middle of this whole thing they have going on.
Oh, that old thing.
Right, and out come 3, astronauts, and Larry greets them at the door as Chief and Cliff go off to find Jane and Dorothy, and crazy stuff ensues. So let's start there with the crew. Do you recall their name?
They were the pioneers of the Uncharted.
Of the Uncharted. There we go. I love it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I honestly, when they showed up, I was like, Are they gonna be like the Challengers of the Unknown or something? Like, were they gonna pull that deep out of this show? But where they were not, but it was still fantastic the way they were used.
All right, so we're introduced to the two guys. I'm blanking on their names. If you recall,
It was Spiff and Specs, I think.
Spiff and Specs. Okay, something like that sounds about right. And they're just bombastic, crazy people. They're bouncing around and making funny jokes and puns, and then we have. What was her name?
I have it right here because I didn't want to mispronounce
it.
Right,
obviously, we want to get this right because this is an important.
Her name is Valentina Vostok.
Okay, right. She was a Russian pilot astronaut, one that Larry knew about.
Yeah, for all you nerds out there, the moment you heard that name, you're probably like, hold up, really? And yes, it is Negative Woman, which I don't think anyone knew she was in this episode. Did you know about Jackson? Because I didn't.
Absolutely not. I had no idea. No.
Yeah, that came as a huge shock, and it was revealed that. For some background of the characters, they were sent into space by Niles, and what was it, the 50s, right?
Yeah, in search of what Larry came into contact with.
Yeah, in search of this. Probably as part of the Immortus experiment that Niles is doing to try and gain immortality. And on the way, they encounter the same kind of energy beings that the negative spirit is that's residing within Larry. And Valentina has her own negative spirit. She's Negative Woman from the comics. And honestly, I was like I said, I was really shocked she showed up, but the way that she was used in this episode with Larry and almost showing what he could be if he embraced the negative spirit was really well done for me. I don't know about you. How did you think?
Yeah, I completely agree, because from the start of this series, Larry has had a complicated relationship with the spirit inside of him. At first, when it first came into him, he resented it for almost 50, 60 years. Because of it, it took everything from him. It took his life away from him, his kids, his wife, his lover, all those things away from him, and it made him a shell of a man. But over the course of the 2 seasons, he's come to kind of embrace it and learn how it can help him. Obviously, they had another issue come up recently after he was attacked by his son with the Bureau of Normalcy, and it's just kind of been But he comes to learn that it only took Negative Woman 5 years to come together with her spirit stuck in space, and for them to become one and become legitimately like a superhero, like what he's kind of been fighting against and fighting giving into. But he learns that he's torturing himself, and that's the reason why the spirit is also torturing him. And that's something that's come up multiple times throughout the show, that Larry's self-deprecation and the fact that he won't let things go is what's forcing the spirit to remain that way. And if he let that go, that he would be able to embrace the spirit and gain acceptance from it. And it's Larry's one of my favorite characters, and his story is so deep and complicated. And it's one of these things where, like, any time that he gets a moment to shine like this and he gets to move forward and learn things, it's awesome. And I think using this kind of character for an episode that had so much going on, to have him have this moment to shine, I thought was really, really well done.
Yeah, I just really liked I'm the same with you. Larry is one of my favorite characters on the show because he has these such great moments where you get to really see how much these experiences have changed him as a person, and not always for the better. And I feel like that's probably the reason why he's so different from Negative Woman. She was going out into space for this purpose, to try and find this energy, and so she was probably more open to the idea of gaining this negative spirit that's within her. But Larry, all he was doing was he was doing his job. He was being an astronaut or whatever, and he didn't know the consequences of what was going to happen to him. And so that fallout with his family, with him on like a personal level, is probably why he hasn't accepted the negative spirit as well as she has. And jumping ahead a little bit, at the end of the episode, I still feel like you can kind of see that he won't ever have that connection that she does, because when he's talking to the negative spirit and he asked if it wants to go off into space, he's like, well, kind of too bad. We're a human and we're going to do kind of what needs to be done down here. And so I feel like it really shows that he is growing and that he's trying to form this connection with this being inside of him, but he still is his own person.
Yeah, but I think, that kind of idea opens the door for something that maybe even be more powerful in Negative Woman, because, she fully embraced the spirit and said, the spirit is me, and I'll allow it to consume me. Whereas Larry's like, if we can meet in the middle, me and you, we can make something even better. Like, if you, scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, we can become this, symbiotic relationship that's even more powerful, because they're both on the same page, and one didn't have to give up everything to have that ability. And I think, as the show goes on into further seasons, and Larry begins to embrace these things, that he could become something, arguably the most powerful member of the Doom Patrol, even potentially the leader of a Doom Patrol, like something more than just the background guy who's always brooding and upset. And I think he has that potential.
That's a very good point. I like that.
And his story is always great, and I think it was definitely on display in this episode.
Yeah.
But we can get into just the kind of the finer details of the astronauts a little more before we move on. It's kind of sucks that, it comes out that, Larry asked straight up, he's like, hey, why are those two so young? Like, I know you have the negative spirit, so you don't age, but why are they staying so young? And he was like, well, she's like, no, they're dead. Like, there's some spore got into their head like years ago, and it's been keeping them alive. And then she basically tells me that they're dying down here because they're exposed to oxygen. She's like, oh my God. This show does such ridiculous things, and it's just
these dark moments.
Right,
it's
these guys just bounce around the entire episode being ridiculous, and then they just die. And they have to bury them alive, basically in this hole. It's like, oh my Lord, like Niles is really a bad guy.
He really is. He is. Like this. There's like memes where it's like the show's villain, the actual villain.
Yeah,
he is the actual villain.
Like it's not. He's the actual villain and the show's villain. Like, he's just a bad guy.
Yeah, he is.
And it's like everyone just goes along with it. And I know they've done a great job this season. And this will transition into the Dorothy stuff of making him a more sympathetic figure and making you feel for him and how his daughter could end the world and he needs to be alive to be there to stop her, to be able to keep her in line. And I think that it's been a powerful message. But he's ruined so many people's lives in the process, like without consequence, just like throwing people out into these crazy missions. And every season, more and more come back, and they're like, "Yeah, Niles sent us up there 50 years ago." Oh yeah, I sent a bunch of Time Bureau guys after, or Bureau of Normalcy guys after Dr. Time. Yeah, they're just stuck there in this crazy disco world for the rest of their life. Like it's just the things he does. And they just have to go along with it. And I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also like, man, this guy's he's a bad guy.
He's a bad person.
And, hey, that comes out in full display in this episode later on.
Absolutely. That's a perfect transition.
Because early on we get here, he's wanting Dorothy. He needs to know where Dorothy is, because if Dorothy sets off, it's the end of the world. So he needs to know where she is. And, as soon as that spaceship comes down, it goes right back up, because Dorothy somehow is able to pilot that spaceship back into space. And honestly, she's 100-something years old. I'm not even going to question it. I'm sure Niles made it user friendly, so she was able to get it back up into space.
She had an apple on
right,
her.
and then here, so now Cliff and the Chief are off on their side mission. They just pull up to the garage, and there's another identical spaceship ready to go, and they shoot off into space. And where do they go? Is that the moon?
I think it might be the moon.
They got to the moon.
I'm assuming it's the moon because they
quickly.
They got there super fast. But
it takes like months to get to the moon.
Let's be real. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens on the show. Them getting to the moon in like 5 minutes, I'm not going to argue with.
If I missed it, I don't know. But it was
the
never
ship
clear.
Is half.
It was never
the
clear
ship's half magic.
Where they went. I assume it's the moon, because where they end up on a meteor. I don't know.
It looks moony.
It looked like the moon enough. But
there's. The ship is half magic, so I'll take it.
Sure. Maybe teleport. I have no idea. Whatever.
Yeah, we're dealing with a robot man and a
it's
half cave woman girl.
I just wanted to know where they were, because they never really made it clear. But yeah, so Dorothy lands on the moon. She goes out there in solitude because she almost killed Jane, so she wants to go off and be in solitude on the moon as to not hurt anyone else. Niles obviously can't have that happen, so he goes up with Cliff. And they go, and I love that he sends Cliff out there, and I love Cliff is just in his regular outfit, same as always, just walks out on the moon, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" She's like, "I'm building a grave," and
okay,
and he's like, "Okay, can I sit here?" Yeah, okay. He's like, "You need some rocks?" Like it's such a like they're on the moon. Like she went inside someone's mind. She's giving them a pep talk. The show's so much fun. I can't even go on about how much fun it is every week, but there were some heartfelt moments. In every moment, Cliff is a father, and he's been dealing with being a father to people like Jane, and now his own daughter. A little bit this last season, and had some trouble this season. And it's just one of those things that's like, well, it's crazy. Like he gives horrible pep talks. He's not very good at what he does, but he really tries, and he does come up there, and he legitimately tries to help Dorothy.
What he says to Dorothy this episode I thought was really good. He hasn't, like you said, he's not the best at these pep talks and these fatherly moments, but what he said in this episode was really good. And what was it? Chief told him to just say whatever he needed to get her onto the ship, and I feel like what he said was honestly heartfelt. And Brendan Fraser's just an amazing actor, and he did such a good job of delivering his message to Dorothy in this.
No, because Dorothy, from the start, Cliff has been against Dorothy. He's not been a fan of her for a long time, especially in the beginning of this episode after what happened to Jane. He's very much in Jane's corner, and for rightfully so, she's in his corner. They're friends. They're very good friends. They bond. And so he's like, "Listen, Dorothy messed with Jane, and I'm upset about this, but." By the end of the episode, he legitimately comes around on her and understands that she's just a scared child and can't control what's inside of her. Much like Jane, and he feels that way, and he understands that. And it's frustrating that he goes up there and Niles pulls out the rug as he does. It's unclear why at this point.
I have a theory why.
Okay, shoot.
So as you know, you'll have seen the episode by now. The Chief sends Cliff out into space to just float there forever. And my theory is that even though Cliff said he's Team Dorothy now, I think it's because he almost kind of threatened Dorothy in a way when they were getting on the ship, that he doesn't care about her at all. And I feel like Niles feels that's a threat towards his daughter, who he's shown that she is the only thing he really cares about in this world. So even though it might seem now that Cliff is here to help her, Niles still doesn't believe him.
Right, I don't think that's not a crazy theory at all, because I think, Niles ruined every single member of the Doom Patrol's life. The former Doom Patrol, all these space people, the people at the Bureau of Normalcy, all of these people, for one goal was to protect his daughter. And the fact that, and it's kind of twofold. It's the only family he has left. He loves her dearly, but also she could end the world. So anything that could anywhere close to cause an issue with her, he has to deal with and get rid of. And I think just throwing out Cliff, while obviously a horrible thing to do after the guy just helped you out, is him just doing another one of these horrible things that he does for his daughter. And it's incredibly frustrating. And I thought we'd move past this. And I thought after it came to light that he'd ruined their lives and he'd caused a lot of their accidents and done these things, that they would move, that Chief would move on and try to treat everyone fairly and give them the benefit of the doubt. But after what we just saw, that's clearly not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fair to Cliff. It's not fair to anybody else.
No. I want to see. I'm excited to see the fallout of Niles' actions next episode, because it seems that Cliff and him were finally starting to come to this kind of like almost understanding. The fact that Niles is going to make him a new body and all this, but I don't think there's a way they can come back from these actions next episode. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's hard to see him just turning back around and being like, yeah, no, we're good after.
Yeah.
If without good reasoning for as to why he did.
Unless there's like a super good, like, I don't expect him to have one. Like, there's no, I just tossed you into space because I don't think that they'll come back from this in any way.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
That pretty much covers up that section of the episode. Do you want to move on to Jane?
Yeah, we can definitely hit Jane. It's definitely a significant portion of this after what happened last episode. Obviously, her mind's in flux, and we have to go into the underground to deal with things. And as we learn, they're trying to toss Baby Doll, and I can't recall the other one's name.
Flaming Katie.
Flaming Katie.
Which, quick apology for last episode. We kept referring to her as Sun Daddy. We messed up. It was Flaming Katie the whole time. We messed up on which personality.
Well, they look very similar and have very similar powers. So
they're both the fire person.
They're both fire people. So I don't know what you wanted us to do. But yeah, so the underground has come to a vote and they want to throw her down the well. And Jane is obviously not keen on that because the only interaction she knows of the well is when Miranda jumped in there herself, and she brings that up, and Miranda's never come back. Hint, hint, foreshadow. So we're, it's one of those things where like she's trying to fight them off and be like, guys, please don't do this. But they've all come to a decision. Like they're all out of their element, each personality, because this has never happened before. A foreign entity entered the body and murdered two of their own, and they're obviously shaken up.
And the way it was handled this episode was really great. I love any scene the show has in the underground, because just all the different personalities interacting with each other is such like an interesting concept, and the way it's handled is perfect. And Jane having to try to come to terms with what's going on, while also at the same time reining in all the other personalities, is such like an interesting. I've said interesting too much. It's such a difficult concept for them to work around it, but it works. It was really great in this episode, and seeing her have to struggle not only with accepting what's going on, but also have to turn to Kay to see if it's okay, and for Kay to kind of turn her away and say it's your job to do this, was great, because Jane seems like she's been going through this struggle for most of the season, where she doesn't really know what she wants to do. She wants to stay with the Doom Patrol, but she doesn't know if that's the right decision for Kay in the end.
Yeah, and I think, Jane obviously feels responsible for Baby Doll's death, and in the same vein, Flaming Katie's, because she was neglecting her roles as primary, and that was the reason that she wasn't up there. She was being lazy. She had been kicked out. They were frustrated with her. She wasn't doing what she was supposed to do, and the only really real reason Baby Doll was up there was because Jane was being incompetent, as the primary, and they were having issues with her. And obviously that directly led to her death, because Baby Doll grew frustrated with Dorothy and they had it out. And that's something that Jane probably wouldn't have dealt with. Jane would have left, or Jane would have walked away, or any number of things to avoid the situation that occurred. But Baby Doll wasn't mature enough to get out of that situation and ended up making it worse, which ultimately led to her death.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure Jane feels for that, and that was her responsibility.
Yeah, and so that kind of gives way to the big reveal at the end of the episode is that now Miranda is back. Somehow she's returned from the well, and she's asked Jane if she can take back over as primary, which as you can assume, it's going to have some unexpected consequences for Jane and the rest of the Doom Patrol. Because as we've seen in these previous these flashbacks with Kay at the church when she was younger, Miranda seems like one of the more evil personalities within Jane. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out for her.
And there's a reason that Jane or Miranda, jumped in the well. Like something, there's this whole mystery
something
around.
broke in her.
Right. She's not a sound personality, and she wasn't before. I mean, she clearly makes the case that she thinks she is now. Mm-hmm. But we don't know that for sure, and there's no way to know that for sure until the show reveals that to us. So obviously there's something sketchy here, and it has to hurt Jane that everyone is like definitely you can tell that they're clearly going to be standing behind Miranda. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that they're just going to hand over to Jane because she's not prepared. She hasn't been doing her duties properly, and that they're going to turn to someone else.
Yeah, recently she hasn't been holding up her end of the bargain as primary, and so it's the reason Miranda's able to take over now so easily, and ultimately how she was able to convince the rest of the personalities to toss Baby Doll and Flaming Katie into the well so that they can. How was it she said, like they can be reborn?
Yeah, reborn.
Reborn, yeah. Which I'm really hoping that part of it was true and that it wasn't just a ploy to get them tossed into the well. Because her losing those aspects of her character, it was such like a sad concept, which...
Yeah, the idea of it is definitely like... Yeah. It hurts you. Like it's very emotional.
And it showed that their sections of Jane's personality are now gone.
Right, and those were characters in their own right that we saw several times. I mean, Flaming Katie, not a lot, but Baby Doll, as much as the next one, other than Jane, she might have been the most prominent. And
her and Hammerhead are like two of the other main personalities.
Right, you see a lot, and it's just like, well, wow, now that one's just dead? Like, we don't, like, that's crazy. Like, it's a weird thing to wrap your head around.
And we saw it physically broke Jane when after they were tossed in the well, she just started crying on the table before Miranda took over the body.
Right.
It has irrevocable consequences for them that they're unable to now perform these tasks that they're in charge of. Which for Baby Doll, I think she said that she was one of the only personalities that trusted men and was open to these people.
Right, which is a very good point, which is something that, it can be needed at times. It's obviously not needed at some points, in her life. She couldn't trust her father and all these things. But at some point in your life, like maybe you have to trust the chief or Cliff or somebody more so than you would as Jane or Hammerhead or any other personality. And then that one just can't manifest anymore. And you just don't know what to do. You need that in a moment. And now it's not going to be there. And there's a lot of consequences to something like that happening. Each one, like they make it very clear, each one is there for a reason. And each one was created for a reason. And them dying is an issue, and an issue that will come up at some point. But yeah,
that'll be interesting to see how that's worked out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the gist of it. You got any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Rita and
right.
Honestly,
so indifferent that I completely forgot.
The fact we kind of skipped it over says a lot. The weaker parts of this episode I'm just going to cover it in one little bit, were Rita's part of the story and Cyborg's. Rita was off with the Cloverton players who were putting on a production of the events of the very first episode of Doom Patrol, where the town of Cloverton is sucked into the donkey. But you can kind of see that their perspective of what happened is very different than what actually happened.
Right,
because they see Rita and the team, especially her, the Blob, as this monster that destroyed their town. So her kind of struggling with that when she's trying to become a hero will be interesting, but honestly, it was just every time it was in this episode was lame.
Of them going to a play of the action, of the events of the first season, it's very funny. That sounds very funny.
Yeah, but it was just kind of boring.
But that definitely didn't work for me. It was a little rough. I love Rita and I love Rita's character, and I find her every time she's in the scene is hilarious. I had no issue with Rita, but just the environment. I love when the group is together and doing funny things together, and they've been separated a lot this season. And I think that's kind of been to the detriment of some characters, maybe. I think they bounce off of each other really well, but maybe not normal people, like, on the street, like these random people. I mean, there's
that don't really know what's going on.
right, and they're all trying to act serious and normal, and it's like, well, the show isn't serious and normal, and I like when they bounce off the crazy. Her stuff really wasn't working, but Cyborg stuff is also just feels like it's not in this show. Like, it feels like it's a Titans plot. Like, I don't.
It was a little bit better than last episode Cyborg stuff, where we're kind of seeing some development with Ronnie finally. This reveal that her cybernetic enhancements that she had were actually created by Star Labs and Caulder Robotics, and that now that the fact they're no longer in her body is poisoning her. So, as we've already said on here, our theory is that Cyborg's going to get her enhancements back for her, but it's going to turn against him, and she'll become the villain that her character is in the comics, where she was actually one of Cyborg's like male friends from his like childhood, who became almost an evil version of Cyborg. So I'm assuming we're going to see that very soon, because there's only, 3 episodes left?
Yeah, 3 after this.
3 after this, yeah. So I assume that's going to be a lot to do in 3 episodes, but as we know, one of the episodes was scrapped because of COVID. But yeah, overall, just this part of the episode, it didn't hit as well as the other parts.
It just it feels out of place, and I'll continue to say that until it doesn't. It just feels like it's from a different show. It feels
the
like
way you said it was very Titansy.
It's very Titansy, and not that it's Titans quality, and not that I dislike it as much as I dislike Titans. It's just what I'm used to on this show, and the other subplots that were happening, and even the main plot with the people coming down from space. Like, it's crazy, it's fun, it's original, it's unique. This thing doesn't feel unique at all. This is a thing I've seen 1,000 times. I
think it's because it feels real world in a way, with these like real world consequences.
Well, right. It's
like evil robotics and the government, blah blah blah. But like the rest of Doom Patrol is like, yeah, these like random space people from like the 50s are here now. One has like a negative spirit inside of her. It's such different plots that it just doesn't mesh well in that way.
And it's the same thing. I love JOIVAN WADE as Cyborg, and every scene he's in, even the actress playing Ronnie. I have no problem with Ronnie's character. I think she's a good bounce off of. It's better than the stuff with Rita. I just think the plot is very grounded and kind of something I'm just not looking for in this show, maybe. And,
it just didn't fit as well.
And until it wraps up, I'll attempt to give it the benefit of the doubt. But it's just, again, week to week, it's just not working for me.
Yeah. But now we've discussed everything that happened.
I think that's
episode.
it. But I'm so indifferent on those things. I like to talk about the good in Doom Patrol rather than the mediocre. But
because on this show, Doom Patrol doesn't miss.
Never, and it never will.
In the heat of battle, it doesn't miss.
For sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well,
we're gonna hope that. So, final thoughts on the episode. Fantastic episode overall, excluding Rita and Cyborg's parts. Everything with Cliff and the Chief in space were great. I loved Larry having to battle this kind of like idea of that he could have mastered the negative spirit years ago, but he's still struggling. Everything with Jane was fantastic. I'm really hoping either Baby Doll or Flaming Katie clutch up in the gulag. I told you I'd get that joke in there somehow.
My Lord.
I told you I would. I'm really excited for the rest of the season. I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I can just reiterate what you said. I mean, it's only getting crazier from here, and 3 episodes left. I can't wait to see how they pull it off. And we're going to be missing an episode, but I hope they leave us on a fun enough cliffhanger where I'm pumped for a season 3 and not dreading it like Titans. That's all I got to say. But I'd put big money on that not happening from this show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at JacobCam13 and at ComicCorner_.
Nope.
Jackson, I say it every time.
Yeah,
Marcos
edits
this.
And I say nope every time.
Marcos edits it.
Okay, you can follow me on Twitter at JacksonHayes67. You can follow the page at Full Circle Cine, CINE. You can check out our work at FullCircleCinema.com. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel and leave a comment on your thoughts on Space Patrol. And we'll catch you guys next week.